Welcome back to the Blindside Blitz, the show where we break down the stories you care about from every angle the league never sees coming. Today, we're diving straight into early NFL playoff pictures, where the battles are heading up, the stakes are rising, and the contenders are starting to separate themselves from the pack. We'll be taking a closer look at the teams setting the pace. At the top, the New England Patriots finding rhythm at the right time, the Denver Broncos showing flashes of dominance, the Philadelphia Eagles soaring on both sides of the ball, and the Los Angeles Rams reminding everyone why they've been a force to reckon with in recent seasons. But the real drama, it's bubbling just beneath the surface. We're breaking down the teams sitting outside the playoff brackets, but refusing to go quietly. I'm talking about the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, still out there, and the Detroit Lions. We'll talk through their paths and their obstacles and the real chances of making a late season surge. So stick around because the road to the postseason might be closer than you think or about to get a whole lot wilder. All right, welcome everybody. I am your host, Jim McPhee, and right there's Mr. Joe DeCapita.
Woo! I gotta tell you, that intro right there got me fired up for the playoffs, baby. I'm excited. Let's dive into this. And
Buddy.
if you're new to the show, welcome to part of the Blitz Nation. Become part of it. Very simple, very easily, and absolutely free. Head over to YouTube by Grumblings Media. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for us. Thumbs up too. Why not? Because it lets YouTube know, hey, this show needs to be seen by more people. And don't forget to tell a friend, share it to everyone you know. Jim, I'm excited. Let's go. Let's get into this.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I mean, again, another wild week in week 11. You know, the Kansas City Chiefs go down to the Broncos again, so they continue their winning streak, and that puts them at the top of the playoff picture here. If you look at the brackets, if we started the playoffs right now, picture this, Joe. The Chiefs aren't there. The Ravens aren't there. The Lions aren't there. The Vikings aren't there. I mean, all these teams that were there last year. I know we talk about this in the beginning of the season, like what teams will get bumped, what teams will make it. And currently, the Jags are in it. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And the Buffalo Bills are the 5th seed right now. So things are getting nuts. But let's go right into it. Joe, the Broncos again here rated at number 1, at least in seeding so far. How did they get this far? And are they really a true contender here going into the playoffs and making a postseason run?
I mean, at this point in the season, now you're at the point in the season where a lot of times teams start to show themselves. In other words, like now we're starting to see glimpses of what the teams might actually be heading down into the playoffs. So the Broncos, it's all about the defense. You got the capital D for Denver, that you might as well just be the defensive Broncos because that's what they're thriving off. They are definitely one of the best, if not the best defense in the entire league, not just the conference. But then you also have, if you got a great defense, you got to have a capable offense, and they have a capable offense. However, there's been times in random games that the offense didn't look quite up to snuff. And that's got to be a little concerning for Denver as they get closer and closer to the end of the season. But right now, they've done everything they needed to do to win those necessary games. I mean, a team that's 9-2 at this point. That's pretty nice to be sitting at 9-2 right now at this point. So for the Broncos, they're sitting pretty. If they can iron out some of the issues that they've had on offense, then this team is definitely something to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And I mean, the Broncos, it's been basically, their defense. Their defense has been holding it tight, keeping them in the games. The offense not playing so well. Like you've said it before, it seems like, Bo Nix is getting strapped by Sean Payton or something like that, trying to keep him contained. And him, again, a really bad season off of his prior year being very good. This year, again, I think his passer rating overall is like an 85. I mean, not, efficient at all, not getting the ball down to the field to some of these players, not until the end, until, his defense holds, keeps them in that game. And then they're able to produce and get enough just to edge out against some of these teams. And again, I'm looking at it. Defense can win you championships. It'll get them far. But right now, again, Bo Nix is the heel to this team right now. It's only as far as he can take them. And so far, we haven't seen the best of him right now. So that could be bad, but it can also be very good because if we haven't seen the best of Bo Nix yet, come playoff time, if he finally hits a stride, then this team could be very dangerous.
Absolutely, and that right there is going to be the big key for Denver. Can Bo Nix continue to develop and to get better before we get to the end of the season? Can he hit his stride in the last, couple of weeks of the season to where they're like, "Oh wow, the Denver offense is definitely killing it," and now they're going into the playoffs hopefully healthy for their sake, and then on top of it, Bo Nix looks even better than ever. So if they can put that all together, then this team is definitely going to be a contender.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. All right, so let's take a look at the Patriots there. They're sitting at the second spot here. And again, under Mike Vrabel here, they turn it around. He's a big part of it, but then also Drake May and how he's playing here at an MVP level. I think there's even something you showed me too about he's leading in voting for MVP at this part right now, most likely here. So again, leading the AFC East here at 9-2. And Vrabel's impact is he's one of only two head coaches in the Super Bowl era to start 8-2 or better after taking over a team that won fewer than 5 games in the previous season, immediately changing the team's culture. So he's a huge factor on this. You're seeing it on the team, on the players, and also one notable thing about the Patriots here is they started the season 0 on the road, and that's one of only 8 times in team history that they've achieved that mark. So road warriors on top of it.
Yeah, and this is a fun team. I mean, honestly, like it's been a perfect storm for the New England Patriots this offseason. They get their head coach who is a familiar face in Mike Vrabel. They get the coaching staff that he wanted to put in place. And not to mention, they have added tremendous talent via draft and free agency, put it all together, and it looks like they've been playing together for like the last 6-7 years. I mean, they look like they're gelling, the chemistry's there. And then you look at the offense. What were they missing? Upgrades on offensive line, wide receivers desperately needed, and they already had the quarterback. Now you look at what they have at this point right now. They have wide receivers that are definitely capable and are killing it, especially Stephon Diggs going to New England, really helping Drake May out, unleashing the fury for deep balls. And then you got Mike Vrabel's defense now with some sprinkled talent in there. Kalavon Chason has 8
Mhm.
sacks. Former Raider, former Jaguar, former anything, you name it. This guy's been around the mill, so to speak, but now he's found a home in New England and he's killing it there. I mean, this is the thing where they've all come together: offense, defense, coaching staff, and now it looks like they have their sights set on the playoffs as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, totally balanced. So you talked about it here. Drake May, what he's doing, he leads the NFL in the passer rating at 107.6. But balanced the defense. They're 5th in the league and allowing just 18.7 points per game. And then the offense ranks 7th in the NFL, averaging 26.5 points per game too as well. And also, just an add-on to what they've been doing. We talked about this a little bit last week, and it only emerged even more, like double down on top of what we were talking about with Trevion Henderson and what he's been able to do. And this rookie running back, I mean, he's emerged as like a home run hitter, like threat. If he gets past that little gap here into the offensive line, he can rip off huge chunks of yardage here. And he is forcing a career high of 9 missed tackles in a single game, which contributes to their success on the running game on top of it. So overall, they're hitting on all cylinders. They're going to be going into a bye week and resting it off, but hopefully, again, they don't lose this momentum and they can come back strong after this. But what a surprise. What a turnaround for the Patriots. And again, you got to believe that they're the real deal.
100%. I mean, there's nothing else that says otherwise. They don't struggle in any one category. They've really come together. Now, early on, first couple of weeks, yeah, there were some concerns. They just weren't playing very well and not playing all on the same page. And now you look the hard work they were putting in the offseason, the hard work that they continue to put in week in and week out. It's showing on the football field now. Now you're seeing Drake May distribute the football, not just to Stephon Diggs, but to all kinds of guys, Hollins and Pop Douglas. Now, I mean, he's getting involved. The Hunter Henry, the tight end, is getting involved. Like everybody's getting a piece of the pie, and they're scoring points. They're having fun doing it. And on defense, they're putting the fear in the offense's eyes.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. So let's look at the Colts next here too. They're sitting there at 8-2 as well. Two losses, but to really tough teams again now too. So Colts are kind of that team to where they remind you of the Lions, kind of, right? At least for me, they run the ball efficiently. That's where their bread and butter is. But then also Daniel Jones, as long as he's got protection, making high efficiency throws, really blowing these teams up here, scoring ridiculous amounts of points. But then when it comes down to, a tough opponent, nitty gritty or weather or whatever it might be, just can't get it done here. They can't, win these close games here to where, and again, the record is good. They're there, but when it comes to facing some of these guys, when it comes to playoff time, are they going to fold here?
Here's the interesting thing is like that's why I feel like you saw the moves that they made before the trade deadline. They knew they needed another corner to come in, another veteran corner, even though as young as he is, Sauce Gardner. They get him from the New York Jets, and they have a corner opposite who right now they're missing their veteran corner on the opposite side there from the 49ers. And it they've made moves like Sauce Gardner. That you look at the team now with their defensive line pretty darn good. The entire defense, even the running back core, like everything is looking really up to shape, up to par. But here's the thing: is as great as the offense has been, as great as Jonathan Taylor has been, there's going to get to be a point in time where pretty soon, I mean, the Colts face the Kansas City Chiefs, which is going to be a huge test for them. And is the game plan going to be shut down Jonathan Taylor and let's make Daniel Jones throw the football? And I see that a lot of good defenses that are better that they're going to have to go up against. They're going to have to answer that question. Like, are they able to create plays with Daniel Jones and throwing the football to open up the offense enough so Taylor can run again? That's going to be the critical thing for them going forward. Can they overcome that? Because when it comes down to the playoff run, I think they're going to make the playoffs because they just a solid football team already. But when you get into the playoffs and you face some of these high-end teams or teams that have been there before, especially several times, are you going to be able to overcome the adversity that's doled out to you? And that to me is where we're going to have to find out right now. Their upcoming matchup with Kansas City Chiefs, can they at least stay with them? Not necessarily beat the Chiefs. Can they stay with them? Beating them will put an exclamation point on everything, but they can't let the game get out of hand, in other words. If they do, then bigger questions will arise.
Yeah, definitely. That's again, it would have to be a staple for them there. For one, that would put pretty much the Chiefs right out, right? I mean, because their percentage of making the playoffs after that, after being 5-6, is like 31% or something. So, and they've got a rough road to go after that. But the Colts, they've got a tough schedule too. Not only just the Chiefs here and trying to take them out. The Jags seem like they're no joke sometimes too. You never know what your team you're getting out of there. It's like, I think for them though, it's all depending on how their defense plays. Their defense is keeping them much like what it is for the Broncos. If the defense holds and things like that, they can stay in the game and just play efficiently, run the ball, and not depend on Trevor Lawrence to screw it up. But then the Colts also have the Seahawks and the 49ers towards the end of the season too. So tough matchups here. But it's good that they've got an 8-2 right there sitting there at the top of the division. I know the Texans, again, the injury on top of C.J. Stroud, even though he's been getting pressured, and the Colts, they haven't been playing very good, but the defense is tight there, and just a mix in that division to where they've got a pretty good shot, just as long as the Jags don't hit that hot spot. Jags had a long way too. I mean, when you look at these last couple of teams here in this playoff tree, they're the suspect teams for me, and I hate to say it about the Bills again, but that's what it is. You're looking at the Steelers, the Bills, the Chargers, and the Jags. I can't trust these teams as far as I can throw them. I don't know what I'm getting every week, right? The Steelers, the defense is going to play 1 week, or they're not going to play 1 week, right? The offense, they're either, they're going to keep dropping passes, or they're going to be efficient. I'm not sure what we're getting. The Bills, it's all on Josh Allen. It's more that it's been blatant obvious, but more than last week here with him being the whole team. 3 passing touchdowns, 3 running touchdowns. I mean, it's a great stat and all this and stuff, but oh my goodness, could it be glaring you in the face even more than that?
Yeah, for the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, like that's going to be big Achilles heel for them. You know, they are not out of the woods by any means, even though they are 7-3. They're not out of the woods because we've seen games where it's like they were a little lackluster. Lost those 3 losses, in other words. Like, let's just take those. Those 3 losses, they weren't because Josh Allen wasn't doing enough. It's because nobody around Josh Allen was doing enough. And it concerns me for the Buffalo Bills if they want to make not only just make the playoffs, but also go farther in the playoffs. They gotta make some changes. Like, the defense is not up to par.
Yeah.
We've gone through this team over and over, and we've
Mhm.
had all the complaints that there could be. The defense not holding up at the end of games, the losses that they've had. There's weakness in the linebacking core, not with you guys being with the Buffalo Bills being beaten up. The secondary in the back end not holding up. The defensive line up the middle not being able to stop the run. And then
Mhm.
you go on the offensive side, and Josh Allen, what can you do for us? Josh Allen's going like, bro, I'm giving you everything I got. You guys
Yeah.
got to help me out. Like, they have the offensive line to do what they need to do. They have James Cook, a really good running back in the backfield. But if the running game isn't working and Josh Allen, all the pressure's back on him. But guess what? You need to have playmakers. Where's Khalil Shakir? I
Mhm.
haven't seen him have a really big game yet, really. Keon Coleman got benched this past
Yeah.
week
Yeah.
for
Scratch.
yeah, healthy scratch. What I heard out of the locker room was that he needs to grow up. So there's some immaturity, problems that are in question there in Buffalo with Keon. And
Mhm.
then they still don't have that go-to playmaker like they once did with Stephon Diggs. There's no guy like that Josh Allen can really depend on when things aren't going the right way, and he can just throw it up and make a play. So you don't have any real explosion on the outsides. You got a bunch of possession receivers, basically. And then Khalil Shakir, as good as he is as a slot receiver, he's not going to be the guy to take over games. So we talked about it in the offseason. We're
Mhm.
talking about it now. And now that they're at 7-3, hopefully they can stay afloat and, improve that record to kind of stay in this playoff hunt. But man, I got to be honest with you. Even though they're 7-3 right now, I got some major concerns about the Bills. There's too much pressure on Josh Allen to make things work, and the defense not holding up their end at times. So this is a team to me that's also on the fence.
Oh yeah, absolutely, Joe. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it too. Yeah, nausea, right? I mean, again, we talked about the defense. We talked about everything, the lack of weapons, not making a move on the trade deadline, and it comes down to the Chargers even too. I mean, the Chargers they had every chance to just take this win here. Again, they're gifting, being gifted almost, right there, second spot right there with the AFC West here, and they could win themselves or lose themselves right out of it, right? Because they played an opponent last week that they should have been able to beat. I know they've got, injuries on offensive line, even at the running back position here, but we've seen them play all right and still play efficiently and kind of, seal the gaps a little bit. Again, and teams like last week should be able to win, but they don't. And it's not even just a close loss. They got embarrassed. And Jim Harbaugh pulls all the starters even at 11 minutes left to go. It's like, yeah, well, we'll just pull it out and just bench you guys, and just here
Right.
we go. Let's move on already. I'm quitting. I mean, that does not say a playoff to me at this point here.
No, and really, it's hard to nitpick on the Chargers too much because despite their offensive line completely being dismantled, I mean that's really what it
Mm,
is. No more Joe Alt, he's done. Zion Johnson banged up. Both, both their tackles that they once had, Rashawn Slater done for the year. So it's like you have both your left and right tackles now gone, which is very critical, especially for a team like the Chargers that love to run the football. And then as you get into the playoffs, we've seen, hey, they can sling it. Justin Herbert is a really good quarterback. We've seen the weapons that he has and how well they work together. But guess what? If you don't have an offensive line to pass protect either, then that's going to be even harder to do. We saw that this past week, how they just got steamrolled, basically. They didn't have any offense. They scored, what, 6 points all
yeah.
game? I
Hmm.
mean, that's not the Chargers that we saw earlier in the year. That this is where it's really going to kill the Chargers, all the momentum that they've built up to this point with losing basically their whole their starting offensive line. This is where the train comes off the tracks a little bit. they're not going to be able to run the football like they used to. They got basically backups playing, as starters, and that's never a good recipe to get the results that you want for the Chargers. So Justin Herbert is all the pressure's going to fall on him. They're going to have to throw a hell of a lot more just to stay in games, just to stay, with the lead, keep the lead and all that. So for the Chargers, this is going to be a critical stretch as we get to the playoffs. They are at the 6th seed right now currently. There's definitely major concern for them. I'm sorry, without that offensive line that they once had in the beginning of the year, this is going to be a true challenge for them. I don't think they're another team that I got to say, they might trip over their own feet as they get down to the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it doesn't get with the schedule, it doesn't get any easier. Again, they've got a bye week this week to try and get a little healthier. They've got the Raiders coming back, which should be good for them. But
View for them.
yeah, you got the Eagles, then the Chiefs, then the Cowboys, even Texans D, and then the Broncos here at week
That's tough.
18.
Stretch.
Broncos could put the nail in the coffin here in week 18 right
Yeah.
there for them. And then again, we'll see what happens if the Chiefs can do something or around that AFC, if something changes too, like the Jags can still hold on to it, what they're doing again. But just with the Jags, they're so up and down. For me, they're like the Panthers, of the AFC to me. You know what I mean? One week you're seeing the defense go, they're hitting and they're doing this. And you're like, whoa, look at that. They just beat the Chiefs. Oh, they just beat the Chargers. They just did this. And then all of a sudden they're like, just lay an egg again. I'm like, dude, what the hell are you guys doing? You know what I mean? And it's so tough to gauge. Like, you'll be like, oh, this is, we're doing their picks and you're trying to go, hey, this is the win here. Nothing's ever a given anymore, man. And they always say that every single year or whatever. But this year, like we've talked about, it just seems like it's more than ever. It's like, I don't know where, it's like throwing a dart blindfolded here.
Similar to the Chargers, the Jaguars, I feel like, are not going to be one of those teams that make the playoffs. Even the wild card, I just don't see it. They're 6-4 right now, and they are on a slippery slope, to be honest. Trevor Lawrence has never rose to the occasion like they were hoping for. This guy is getting paid heavily. He's their starter for the next at least maybe 2-3 years. And it doesn't seem like he's getting any better. He's still the same old Trevor. And honestly, when it comes down to not having a run game, because if you look at the beginning of this year for the Jaguars, offensively, they were steamrolling through defenses because of their running game, because of their rushing attack. And even Trevor Lawrence was joining in on that by when something wasn't open, he was taking off and adding to that rushing total. So when the defenses started getting tougher to go up against and they started recognizing, hey, they just like to run the ball. Let's stop the run, make Trevor Lawrence throw the football. When that happened, all the pressure went back to Trevor Lawrence. He struggled to distribute the football accurately and on time. Brian Thomas Jr. goes down with an injury, their number one receiver, and they didn't have any answers after that. That's when the 3 or 4 losses came into play, where they were struggling on offense. The defense kept coming in and out, on and off the field constantly. And you're getting to this dangerous point now, if you're Jacksonville, where as good as I feel like they found their coach in Liam Cohen. I feel like he's the answer for them, especially as an offensive minded guy. He calls a good game plan. He makes good decisions, but I just don't think he has the right guy as their quarterback. And until they do, I think that this Jaguar team is going to continue to struggle down the stretch. I think they're going to end up missing the playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. If you look at how Mac Jones is playing over there with San Francisco now, Brock Purdy's back, but Mac Jones and what he did, and he was already in that building here for Jacksonville. I mean, I feel like who knows, he could have competed,
Right.
but I felt like once the deal was done to pay Trevor Lawrence, I feel like they already crowned him. You know what I mean? To, hey, we paying you now, we have to put you in. So they tied themselves to him.
Right.
So, and that's where they are. Yeah. So I agree with you too. Now let's look at some of the teams on the outside looking in. The number one for me again right there is the Kansas City Chiefs, just because we've seen them play so well, or just be that dynasty, or at least everybody's talking about. Again, Mahomes is the next GOAT. The next dynasty, Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Right now, the Chiefs, have a chance of missing the playoffs, one of their worst starts in their franchise history here. And if they don't make the playoffs, it would be the first time since 2014 when they missed the postseason here. But then they even had a 9-7 record. The Chiefs, I think, they'd be glad if they come out of here with a 9-7 this season.
Yeah, and it still could happen, right? Like, they're 5 and
Mhm.
5 now, they're 500. It's not panic mode, you know what I mean? Like, some Chiefs fans out there are out there talking blasphemy
Jumping ship.
about saying that the team is washed, Andy Reid needs to go, Patrick Mahomes sucks, like, all these negative things, and it's like, "Hold on a
Uh,
second. You guys gotta stop panic you got a great coaching staff, you got one of the best head coaches in Andy Reid. The guy knows what he's doing. He has those creative plays, right? You know, and then you look at the Chiefs defense. I don't think they're Swiss cheese. I don't think they're a bad defense. They're a good defense.
no.
But
Mhm.
and they have a good offense. It's I don't know if it's everybody catching up to Kansas City or is it just Kansas City not hitting their stride yet? You know what I mean? Like not every team is going to be perfect and be, high caliber football all the time and hit executing all the plays just right. Like the Chiefs had a great run of perfection, near perfection anyway. Now
Mhm.
it seems like this year's where they kind of came back down to earth a little bit. Early on, they struggled, but now it looks like they're getting a little bit back here and there. This is a team that's by no means out of the running for playoffs. This is one of those teams that are on the bubble currently that I see finishing into the playoffs. They
Mhm.
now, and I see them finishing winning the division unless the Broncos continue their winning ways, right? Like, if the
Mhm.
Broncos continue to win, there's no way the Chiefs can catch them. But
Yeah.
I would say worst case scenario is that the Chiefs end up a wild card team and then end up surprising a lot of teams thereafter.
That's dangerous too,
Yeah,
right? Having the
absolutely.
Chiefs as a wild card team where they're even hungry, and they're just like,
But
seen as the underdog
right.
at one point
But
here.
here's the crazy thing is if they're in the wild card and they're 7th seed, whatever, they're going up against a tougher matchup in round 1. They've never had to deal with
Mhm.
that before. They've usually had a
Mhm.
pretty or I should not pretty easy, but like an easier opponent to face the first time around. Now
Mhm.
they're gonna have to go they don't get a bye. That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
Now there's no bye week for them. Guess what? You gotta play this game, the next game, into the championship game. So it's a longer road to travel. So I think the Chiefs will be up for it when it comes time, but this is where I feel like the Chargers or the Jaguars are gonna swap places with like the got team like Kansas City Chiefs
Mhm.
and kind of like one of the
Yeah.
other teams that we're gonna about to talk about.
Right, right, and, the thing is too with the Chiefs too, they can't run the ball effectively at all too. We talked about, Pacheco getting back, trying to get healthy, but even Kareem Hunt, they're just not running the ball, and they're not even calling wrong run plays really either. They're just avoiding it, and I think that's why you're seeing teams even just say, "Well, if they're not gonna run, we're just gonna keep pressuring them." In that Buffalo Bills game, he had a pressure rate of 52.6%. It's the highest he's faced
Yeah.
in his 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So people aren't afraid. They're pitting them back, going after that, and they're just basically saying, "Hey, let's pressure him, let's see him, and try and contain him so he doesn't take off running, and we'll hold him there." And it seems like with the offense on the Chiefs, to me, it's that we talked about it for the last couple of seasons, but they've been able to get away with it. But it's almost like that deep ball or nothing, or they get these scrambles and try to make something that if it's not there. So it seems like they're running those deep ball routes, except for unless it's, Kelsey doing his finding his spot in the middle, and getting open. And if it ain't there, Mahomes is just, it's already too late and he's trying to scramble. He's just not making those big plays. And that's to where it's coming down to what we looked at last year. People were starting to figure that out. They got it close, but they were edging out games and winning those close games. This year, they're just not able to do it this much here, and they're losing there on the other side of the coin on this one. And the defense isn't holding up long enough because that offense is just going up and down, up and down, up and down.
Well, you
So,
see we're seeing now though is I think defensive coordinators are starting to really kind of dive right into the Kansas City Chief film and they're starting
mhm,
to notice a lot of similarities with how they call their plays, what their formations look like and what they like to run out of those formations. You look at the screenplay. The screenplays for the Kansas City Chiefs this year, I mean, I don't know if there's a stat out there, but I think they run more screenplays than they ever have this season.
mhm,
Like, I understand
mhm.
they get back Rashee Rice, so
Yeah.
the hope was for Kansas City fans was like, with the return of Rashee Rice, he was gonna be the deep threat. He was gonna be the guy to take the top off the back end of the defense, and then you would see more deep throws down the field, but we're not. We're seeing a lot of screenplays, a lot of creative option plays, and I understand that Andy Reid is very creative and all, but from the plays that we've seen that were called for Kansas City to run, it almost seems like because they have Patrick Mahomes, they're running these like quick high percentage throws, screen plays, and if that's not there, we're going to have one guy at least down the field where Patrick Mahomes will find a way, he'll just figure it out. He'll find a way of getting out of the pocket, threatening like he's going to run, and then deliver that bomb, or getting out of the pocket and just flat out running by everybody for a first down.
Mhm.
It's almost like they're like, well, Patrick Mahomes is our, he's our emergency brake for the play. Like when all else fails, he's going to be engaged and he's going to make something happen for us. And I don't think you can do that when you play against better teams. And we've seen that
Mhm.
already this season from them. That's why they have 5 losses. And
Yeah.
everybody, including us, like I'll say this, like before Rashee Rice got back to the Kansas City team, you could probably put the blame and say, oh, well, they don't have Rashee Rice yet. They don't have Malcolm Brown yet. Now they got everybody. They got everybody at their disposal, so they should be making that run, if you will. So Kansas City's got a long way to go, but I definitely see them as making the playoffs when it's all said and done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Again, and another one of those teams on the outside looking in, the Baltimore Ravens, and they had every reason though too. I mean, they had a lot of injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball early on,
Over.
and a couple of different backup quarterbacks in this season. You've got Lamar Jackson back, so now they're getting back to winning, getting a bit healthier. The defense is playing now well, but the one thing though with this team, and again, I watched it last week and more the week before, is yeah, Lamar's back. He's not the same. He's not the same Lamar again, Joe. We're looking at it, and I think the first week back, he only had like 3 rushes for a couple, for like maybe like 12 yards or something like that. It wasn't a whole lot. And when you take that away from him, what makes Lamar Jackson great is the fact that he is a dual threat. He can run around and pass at the same time. If you take his legs away, and he's shown, especially in that first game back, he's just an average quarterback. I hate to say it again, but it is. It takes it so far back for that team that then they got to do different type of game plan and get, Derrick Henry more involved, try and
Mhm.
get some of the play action going. There's times when we've seen that Baltimore Ravens team when we're like, okay, well, where's they're going to do an RPO here, they're going to do that. And the last 2 weeks, there has been no real threat to me that I can see that if I'm a defense playing them, I'm not really spying Lamar. I'm not really afraid of him taking off.
No, and you know what? It's interesting because Cleveland and Minnesota Vikings defense, I think, did a very good job against Lamar Jackson. Cleveland Brown's better than anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
when you
Oh
hold
yeah.
Lamar Jackson to just under 200 yards passing, and he threw 2
Hmm.
interceptions,
Yeah.
I mean, you've done your job as a defense. So obviously,
Absolutely.
it was a divisional opponent. There's all that and all the variables with that. But again, they did their job against Lamar, and
Yes.
Lamar did not come, rise up and be the Lamar that we are used to seeing. We're used to seeing a Lamar Jackson. Yeah, he might not be the best quarterback in the league, but he's the best at being both quarterback and a runner. And that's where
Mhm.
he's lethal. If you take away any one of those elements, he's not a guy that's going to bring you back, to win the game when you're down by 17. It's just not going to happen unless he continues to utilize those legs. We've seen
Mhm.
numerous pieces of evidence the past couple of years with him in big games. In the first half of the game, looks like Lamar runs for 70 yards or something in the first half, throws for 150, has a touchdown pass. And you're like, oh man, looks like Baltimore's going to run away with this one. And then in the second half, a very different version of Lamar shows a guy who stays in the pocket, not looking to get out if need be, not looking to get those extra yards, trying to make all the throws and not utilize his legs. And that's where he struggles. So, yes, Jim, the last couple of weeks, he's been that kind of Lamar. He hasn't been the Lamar Jackson of when he came back against the Miami Dolphins and threw for 204 yards, had 4 touchdown passes, and also had crazy rushing yards. That's not the Lamar we're seeing. We're seeing a guy the last couple of weeks where it's like this forget Lamar Jackson, but even the Ravens offense as a whole is not looking like themselves. They're not looking like the
Mhm.
bullies that we saw in week 1, Derrick Henry steamrolling through defenses, Lamar Jackson and the receivers playing off of that, Lamar Jackson running and getting what he needs to do with his legs. That's what we need to see from the Ravens. Now, it's great that they started off really bad at 1-5, and now they got 4 straight wins. It looks like they're starting to turn the corner. Now they're another team now that have put themselves in the position of, at least
Mhm.
at the moment, wild card, with their eyes set on maybe making enough noise in that very tough division to maybe taking over the Pittsburgh Steelers and winning the division after all. I'll tell you right now, we said this about this division before, about how tough it is to play in the AFC North. It's even tougher to start off 1-5 and come all the way back to winning that division. So they're another team that I feel like Kansas City, I don't
Mhm.
think Baltimore will be the one on the outside looking in. I think they're going to be in the playoffs when it's all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one thing too, with all that, with the injuries, with the mistakes, being 5-5 and only one game off of the leader in the division. I mean, yeah, you're like, all we gotta do is just win this
Yeah,
division.
and
You know what I mean? Forget the wild card or whatever. But even wild card at this point looks like another year where maybe 7 and 10 get in here.
you look at this team now with all those injuries that they had, and it wasn't just defensive. Yeah, they had a lot of defensive injuries, a lot of players down.
Mhm,
But offensively,
mhm.
they didn't have Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle. You know what I mean? They were missing a couple other offensive linemen, or at least that were beat up to where they weren't playing at their full potential. And then also the loss of Lamar Jackson, your starting quarterback. You're bound to lose games, right?
Yeah,
So now you're looking at this team now. They're healthier, they're back together. And what we've seen recently, too, which is promising, is we've seen the reemergence of Mark Andrews at tight end. Lamar Jackson throwing him the football a lot more, getting him involved. And that, if they can build that confidence between those two, and Mark Andrews also getting
yep.
confidence as they get closer to the playoffs, that's going to bode well for Baltimore, as they push forward to try to get back into the playoff situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the remaining part of their schedule, they play the Steelers twice and the Bengals twice. So opportunities to win within their
Knock, knock.
division, take that opponent and knock them down too, and take them out. So that'll be key. So especially, I mean that's one thing you want to look at, and you're like, well, depending on how they're looking and looking at Joe Burrow, and we opened up the 21-day window. Does he look at this team and just say, "Hey, look at this. I'm going to be able to play these guys a couple times here in the end of the year here. Right now, Steelers only 6-4, we're 3-7, but if I can come in, we can make an impact. Do I try to make a push, or do I just feel like, I know it's funny, NFL says again there's a 1% chance that they make a playoff, but I don't know, this division tight. If it stays tight and they keep beating each other back and forth, or at least taking a game, it's worth talking about.
Yeah, like for the Bengals, they are in a much tougher situation. I mean, being 3-7, you're probably a couple wins off or a couple losses
Mhm.
off to being basically just completely out of the playoff run. It's going to be a really steep hill for them to climb, but they have to win their division games. That's
Yeah.
the only way they're
Yeah.
going to have a
That's
shot.
the only way.
Only way they're going to have a
Mhm.
shot to make the playoffs is if they beat those divisional opponents. Again, we just talked about the Ravens and how they're looking to storm back and win the division. Baltimore or Cincinnati's definitely going to have a tough time to overcome not just the Ravens, but also Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. Let's look at the NFC side now here as we look at the early playoff picture. Eagles up atop again. Fly Eagles fly there at 8-2, tied with the Rams. But Eagles have winning close games too. But it wasn't until the trade deadline here, right, that they've made these additions here on top of it, that now this defense is really stepping up. Phillips making an impact right away. The corners do playing well. It's just all around now. You're getting pass pressure. You're getting turnover, scoring on the defense. I mean, big time. And that's what's made a difference in the last couple of weeks here against these tough opponents that they have to face here. So now they are getting kind of back to, to form, I guess, even though within the ranks, you've got hey, we're not running the ball efficiently like we were last year with Saquon Barkley, and the passing game isn't exactly there yet either. It seemed like for a while that Jalen Hurts only trusted Dallas Goedert or Devontae Smith. But it's funny, just like what always happens, right, Joe? You hear AJ Brown get a little out there, saying a few things, and oh my God, look who gets targeted, the whole day, right? The next time,
Yeah,
right?
it's awfully interesting how that
Squeaky
works.
wheel gets the
I
grease.
mean, all you gotta do is complain a little bit and talk to the media, and then before you know it, now you're getting the ball thrown to you. I mean, this is a wide receiver with AJ Brown that you leaned heavily on him last year, and it worked out
Yeah.
pretty well. Like, I understand you have Devonta Smith at your disposal. You have Dallas Goedert. You have players around you, but AJ Brown is the X factor. Like, he is the guy that when you want him to make the tough catch, when you want him to be the guy to body up somebody, throw it to AJ Brown, because most likely he's going to come down with it 95% of the time. And that was sorely missed. And what you notice too about that team is offensively, by feeding the ball to AJ Brown, it opens everything else up too. Dallas Goedert became more open. And don't get me wrong, he was getting open anyway, but it seems to me like if you include AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, is going to get his catches. Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
does favor him a lot to throw to. But now, if you add AJ Brown to that equation, now this Eagles offense starts to look a little bit about like itself last year. And then, when we just thought we had to defend Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, crap, Saquon's got the ball now. Like, that's what we started to see from the Eagles. And then after the Eagles offense looking better, the defense stepped up. The defense was getting pressure. The defense was making plays on the back end. And now you're looking at this Eagles team and saying, hey, I know it's only one game. I get it. It's only one sample size of what the Eagles should be. But if they can keep this momentum going now, this could be the Eagles team that makes another kind of run towards the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the one thing they were missing. And AJ Brown was talking about it. Wasn't he, every wide receiver says, I got give me the ball, give me the ball. But I think what he was really saying is the fact that listen, we're stagnant. We're not doing what we are capable of. And I'm part of that because if you look at Jalen Hurts' even stats and how he's kind of played this year, right? It seems he's got 15 touchdowns. I think only one interception because he's holding on to the ball. He's trying to not make the mistake, but that's the part of having AJ Brown in your offense. How many balls this particular week did he catch that no other wide receiver, especially on the team, is going to be making one-on-ones with somebody, go up and you just snag it. That's where you have a guy like that in AJ Brown with this offense that I think Jalen Hurts wasn't really looking at. He'd just be like, well, he's covered. This guy, waiting for the wide open option. And I think if you open it up and just throw a 50-50 ball to AJ Brown or get him the ball more, it opened everything up. Like you said, the running game and this, instead of looking for the crystal clear option, I feel like Jalen Hurts was doing.
Before we got to this game, though, there was something else going on between AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, whether it be the relationship, whether it be their friendship, whatever the heck it is. Because Jalen Hurts was going out of his way to not throw it to AJ Brown. AJ Brown was getting open all the time, and he was still dumping it down to Goddard or throwing it to Devonta Smith instead of throwing it to AJ Brown, who happened to be wide open. You know what I mean? So there was something else going on, and I hope it doesn't affect this team going forward. Like, okay, we saw this one game where AJ Brown got involved. This has to continue now. If the trend continues, this team will be better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't just all of a sudden open up the bottom like, oh, that was nice, and then just put it back away again, put it back on the shelf. Like, all right, that was good. We showed we could do that again. But yeah, again, now the Rams here, they're also 8-2 as well. And they're running on all cylinders too. I mean, right now this year, their dominant performance is basically on both sides of the ball too. The scoring offense, top ranking scoring offense and on defense, player production. I mean, now we're seeing Devontae Adams playing up to par here that we're used to seeing him play. The defense, again, like I said, they're ranking highly in both points and points allowed in 6th and 2nd in points allowed here for the defense here. So top tier defense playing on all cylinders. And then Matthew Stafford playing at an MVP level in his 17th season. He leads the league with 25 passing touchdowns through the first 9 games and has thrown only 2 interceptions and 11 record sharing only with Patrick Mahomes. He's also passed several individual career milestones in passing touchdowns and completions this year too as well. Puka Nakua, he's a beast, full beast mode. And then also Kyron Williams in the running game, also in moving the sticks. And he's got 43 first down runs too, ranking his third best in the league too as well.
Yeah, when are we gonna start having the conversation of Puka Nakua for MVP?
Right?
Because this guy is so important to the Rams. I understand they have guys like Devonta Adams and all that jazz, and it's nice. And, Kyron Williams in the backfield, and Stafford having the type of season he's having. But Puka Nakua is the guy that makes the drink work. Like this is the guy that you lean on him to open everything else up. And Puka Nakua is having one of the greatest single seasons of his career right now. I mean, the guy is just you can't stop him. You just can't stop the guy. You can't defend him. I don't care who you are. This guy's going to get his catches, he's going to get his yards, going to get his touchdowns. And Stafford has been relying on him ever since he got in LA. This Rams team is built to win, and honestly, they're built to win a Super Bowl right now. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
a very young, up and coming defense. I mean, I don't know how many times we can say up and coming because we said that last year. So maybe not up and coming anymore. Maybe they're just known. It's a very good young defense that is tenacious after you. They pressure you. They make you make mistakes. They capitalize on it. They stop the run. They do everything well. And then on offense with Stafford's leadership and what he's been able to do this season and the weapons that he has, I mean, this team is another team kind of like the Eagles. Like they have the same record, but man, I got to tell you, I would love to see a matchup Eagles versus Rams. That would be an awesome game to watch. But I think they're another one of those teams in the NFC that are in that category of like, yeah, they're definitely making the playoffs and can't wait to see what they can do afterwards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've got to be the top contenders here again. And they're for real. Like, there's one of the teams you don't have any questions about, right? And again, fully balanced on offense, defense. And you bring up a good point, too, of Puka Nakua. Why isn't he talked about here in possible MVP, rankings here? Because he continues his historic start, to his career. He was the first player in NFL history to record 50 receptions in the first 5 games of a season, and he tied the second fastest mark to reach 3,000 receiving yards. And he also right now leads the NFL in first down receptions. So big key player for that offense. When he's not there, again, it's a big difference. It's like night and day. So passing the torch from Cooper Kupp to Puka Nakua, and he's still at large, he's still a rebel out there doing things. It's craziness. So yeah, no questions about the Rams. And that's what kind of brings us to like the Bears now, right, Joe? Another team they kind of remind me of the Broncos again. Defense, really good, keeping in the game, scoring defense, getting turnovers. That's what I mean. And then the Bears just hang in there enough. And Caleb Williams makes a few plays at the end, and they're winning. You know what I mean? And they've definitely edged out a couple of wins that they shouldn't have. And here they are at 7-3. But for me, again, they're a really hollow 7-3 team. And it looks like the NFL too, when they look at the remaining schedule, the probability goes down, even though they're the 3rd seed, goes to a 58% of still holding on to this spot.
Yeah, the Chicago Bears, I never saw them as a 7-3 type team. I did like their defense a lot, but I'm not a fan of their offense. Not just I love the weapons. I can appreciate them upgrading their offensive line another year and getting that kind of, shored up. But the quarterback, Caleb Williams just isn't going to be the guy that's ever going to win you a Super Bowl. And I'll put my stamp on that. We've seen too many mistakes made by Caleb Williams. And the fact that he was able to run his way to a win, it just has to show you everything you need to see. This guy, when everything breaks down around him, he looks to take off.
Right.
And when he has faced better defenses, he folds under the pressure. He makes errant throws. He turns the ball over. Now, guess what? The Bears might have had a schedule set up for them to be 7-3 at this point. But I'll tell you this right now, as we get down to the end of the season, when everything is going to be checked and everything is going to you're going to have to prove yourself if you can overcome adversity. It's going to be, your time. You got to rise up to the occasion. And I don't think that Caleb Williams is going to be able to do that for Chicago. In fact, they're the 3rd seed now. I don't even know if they're the 6th seed when it's all said and done. I think that there's going to be a string of games where they're going to come back down to earth. And then Caleb Williams is going to show how much he actually does struggle against better teams. And here we go. We'll have the wild card conversation for them by the end of the season. But again, I don't think that they would even go very far, even if they ended up and stayed at 3 or maybe even go to 4 seed by the end of the year. I think they're a one and done team. I don't think they're built for the playoffs. I don't think they're ready for it, especially when your quarterback isn't the sure shot that you need him to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you look at they are beat by good teams, and then they've won against teams again that are struggling. But even in those games, they were behind,
Right.
and you're talking about he's making big chunk plays, and actually there's a stat through the NFL which they call them kind of quote unquote big plays of runs of 10 plus yards and passes of 20 plus yards. They rank the most with 78 of them, but it is defenses dropping back because they got the lead and there they go. So there's nobody open, but you've got all this space. And that's what
Mhm.
Caleb Williams does, take off running and gets them up and moves the chains and things like that. And that's kind of been what the key is for them in the closing moments of games and got that back into it. And I agree too, again, Joe, I think they're going to run into a team, say all of a sudden, if they're around there, you're looking at playing the Bucks or the Seahawks, even at this point. And I see both those teams beating them. You know what I mean? So, I mean, again, I don't see them making it much further here either. Bucks again, they're a steady team too. I still they think they're for real here. They got their ups and downs, but they've had a tough schedule and they've played some really tough opponents here. You know, in a shootout against Josh Allen here and the Buffalo Bills. That's one thing. Seahawks again. I'm steady on these guys too. They're a solid team. They're playing good and that last game though too. That's one thing that you hope you don't see though, right? With Sam Darnold, the multiple turnovers in the game, and they were still in that game because of the defense and what they were doing. But when you turn the ball over that much, you're destined to lose.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that scared me about this going forward with Sam Darnold and moving the Seahawks to the Seahawks. I just hope that he doesn't do a one and done for them going into the playoffs here like he did for Minnesota.
I don't think that's the case. I think what really needs to happen for Seattle is you got to pass protect better. I mean, that's the bottom line. The guy was highly pressured to the point where like he was trying to get it to people, but with all that pressure, him getting banged around and stuff. I mean, what do you want the guy to do? They got to hold up better up front, 100%. And when you have these high stake games, like when you do face the Rams, and whatnot. You got to show up. And I felt like the Rams defense definitely showed up. I don't think the Seattle team as a whole showed up. Yeah, the defense played well, but I don't think they played as dominant as they have been all season. I think, and that could be part of the Rams and just how good their offense is. But this is where this is going to be one of these teams like Seattle, who I definitely think is going to end up making the playoffs and kind of stirring the pot when we get there just to see what kind of team this is. This is a very well coached team. And you do have to give some blame to Darnold because some of the throws when he did have a little bit extra time was making some miscues and you're kind of scratching your head why he threw it into the coverage and why is he trying to feed it through a thin window when you could have just checked it down somewhere. This is something that the Seattle Seahawks and Sam Darnold are going to study. They're going to learn from their mistakes, and hopefully, we won't see those kind of poor decisions from Sam Darnold going forward. But this is still a team in my eyes where they have a really good defense. They have a good offense. It's just they got to put it all together. And I didn't see enough from Rashid Shaheed getting involved in this offense. I understand you're going to lean on JSN,
Mhm.
Jackson Smith and Jibba. I get it. He's your go-to guy. He makes the plays happen. But now that you traded for Rashid Shaheed, call some more plays to pull some of the
Yeah.
pressure off of him. You know what I mean? Mix it up a little bit more. And they have the tight end AJ Barner, who has been quietly having a good season himself. Get him a little bit more involved in the same. Make it harder for
Yeah.
teams not to just key in on JSN and everybody else around
Yeah, and you see that they try to do that in the first game here with Shaheed, and just they're not on the same page. Him and Darnold not on the same page. So hopefully, again, as it comes in now, a
you. It'll get
third week
better.
together, they'll be
It'll get
more
better.
in sync here and get
Yeah.
there. So I
I
agree
don't
with
think
you
Darn
there too as well.
I don't think Darnold is used to throwing to that kind of speed.
For speed, right?
He's different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's look at the Green Bay Packers now too, who last week too. I mean, having injuries to Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, but then Jordan Love even it wasn't his fault this week too, and how they even played. I know the wide receivers had the dropsies all over. I mean, it's just crazy though. You feel like you have some okay depth. Yes, you ended up drafting, Marcus Golden and things, but when he's out, Christian Watson used to be, a starter for them or this, that, I mean, come on, man, reel in these catches here. Help the guy out because you can only do so much if these guys are bringing it down.
Yeah, and his one favorite player to throw to is Romeo Doubs
Yeah.
because that guy just seems to outshine everybody else and is playing well.
He
Still
even
don't
dropped one though, like
I know,
he went to turn up or something, just
and they
doink.
still don't have Jaden Reed back yet. But, like, that's something else to monitor because when he comes back, this offense might look a little bit of a shell of itself right now because guys like Christian Watson, again, he made, a nice catch one time, then drops another. It's
Mhm.
like inconsistency at the receiver position needs to be better. And I think they'll get that when Jaden Reed does return back to the lineup. Josh Jacobs, again, like a little bit more on his injury. It's a knee contusion. It's nothing serious. So that's really good news for the Packers. He may play this week. They might hold him out. But again, Packers as a whole, I felt early on, like the first 3 weeks of football, I'm like, man, this Packers team is
Yeah.
definitely a favorite. They're going to be
Oh,
the number one
boom.
seed.
Mm.
Like there was no doubt about it. And then they pull off the trade for Micah Parsons. You're like, oh snap, this
Yeah.
is going to be amazing to watch. And now they're 6-3-1, and it's like,
Mhm.
what are the Packers now?
Yeah.
Like they're not what they were in the beginning of the year, and they're not that convincing to be in the playoff race. Like right now, they're hanging on by a thread, honestly, because
Yeah.
if things go south quick for them, I, I don't know. Like they're a team that they're another team, much like the AFC and their sixth seed. They're on the fence.
Yeah.
It's now's the time where you either have to supersede expectations and play much better, or you're going to fall and miss the playoffs, and it's going to be a very disappointing season.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing with this team. They need to turn it on now. You know what I mean? Because the last couple of weeks, again, yes, they've had some tough games against, the Eagles and holding them to only 10 points, which is great on the defense. We're not seeing a lot of crazy explosive plays that I thought we were going to see with this defense because we saw a top five last year. Then you got Micah Parsons, like you said, you're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, these guys are going to be insane.
Yeah, yeah.
And really just it's kind of just like they're just getting by on everybody, right? I mean, they're just keeping every game close, whether it's the Panthers, whether it's the Eagles,
Yeah.
or even the Giants. I mean, Giants led by Jameis Winston, you know what I mean? Barely edge out that game,
Right,
27-20.
right.
Really? You know what I mean? We're supposed to take you seriously, and then in the next couple of weeks, you've got division rivals like nonstop, and then for the next 3 weeks, and then the Broncos defense. You know what I'm saying? And then the Ravens in week 17. Oh my gosh.
You'll
So
be losing a lot.
you better win those divisional games where you've got the Bears twice, you've got the Vikings twice too, and the Lions when it comes around this time, and the NFL does this on purpose just because we talk
Yeah.
about this and they want us to, they want these things to matter. This is where it's all going to be. This is where it's going to matter. These are the trenches now. This is crunch time. These playoffs are won and lost right here, and it's happening this week 12 going forward. And it's going to be tough. I know they've got the percentage of their chance of making the playoffs here or staying
Pretty
in there.
high.
It's up there. It's at 74. I don't know, man. It's like 50-50 looking at this at this point, the way this team's been playing and the opponents that they have. Oh,
Yeah, right there is what it is. It's like there's no conviction on this team like we
mm,
had early on in the year,
yeah.
where this team has kind of faltered a little bit to the point where, and I get it, everyone deals with injuries and whatnot, but it's faltered so much that Jordan Love looks like one week he looks like the Jordan Love that, like, oh my God, Jordan Love can play quarterback. He is pretty good. And then you see the next 2 weeks, like what happened to him? What's that? He threw three turnovers. You know what I mean? Like what's going to happen next? So it for the Packer fans out there, for people that are rooting for the Packers, there's no clear-cut answer for them. It's a team much like the rest of the league. Everybody's been up and down. All these contenders and everything, nobody has taken the torch and said, I'm leading everyone. What we're going to leave everybody else behind, and we're the number one seed. We're going to be the contenders. So for the Packers, again, they're a team that's on the fence. even though they give them a 74%, you know, uh, probability to make it. Again, I'm not so sure I'm that on board with that. I think that, like you were mentioning 50-50, Jim, I don't know. It might be
Mhm.
for me, it might be
Yeah,
45% at this point.
yeah,
Like,
it definitely
they
is. They've got a tough route here.
don't have a lot of confidence in them right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, when you've got those other competition and everybody, you're like playing to your competition, kind of like. I mean, that's
Right,
what it kind of seems like,
right.
right? And again, Jordan Love just doesn't look like he's progressing. It seems like he's that same guy I saw, a couple of years ago. Still, I mean, nothing stepping out, like so, getting better. Like I don't know, it just seems like
He's
the same type of thing.
And the problem is, like, kinda like Sam Darnold in a sense where, like, he's had one really good year as a pro, as a starter
Hmm.
at quarterback.
Hmm.
Ever since then, it's like he's an average quarterback.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Darnold has so far has had a good season for Seattle until what we witnessed.
Just witnessed. Yeah.
But again, these guys, they're gonna have to step up if they want their teams to go far.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, then round out right now, if the playoffs were right now, 49ers there at the 7th seed. And again, you can't talk about them enough in the franchise and what they've done. And again, picking up Mac Jones and having him lead the way in that offense here it's just phenomenal. It's kept the ship afloat with the injuries that they had nonstop at wide receiver. Christian McCaffrey has stayed healthy for them. That's a major factor for them on top of it too. And now Brock Purdy comes right back in, slides into the driver's seat and unloads. You got George
Yep.
Kittle healthy, you know what I mean? And now they are poised to kind of make a good push here and kind of keep it going in a division that's still led by the Rams and the
Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers, they're still good too. Again, they're sitting there at 7-4. They could be this division right here that we're looking at right now. The NFC West could have three teams right here in the playoffs here moving forward, which I think they will.
Yeah, and for the 49ers, this is kind of another team they've sustained some major injuries on the defensive side of the ball. They've
Mm,
obviously we know that Brandon Ayuk, they're still hoping that he returns this year. Ricky Parasol just returned back to the lineup for a long absence that he's had with an injury that he's been dealing with. And you're starting to see this team, yes, they're getting healthier on offense, but still, they are missing a lot on defense. And that to me, like they don't have their all pro middle linebacker and Fred Warner. They don't have Nick Bosa anymore. Michael Williams, who their rookie draft pick, left the game due to injury. So there's not a whole lot to be excited about defensively for the 49ers. And I wonder if that's going to hinder them going forward, as they play the rest of these games to where they might miss the playoffs, honestly, because they don't have that defense healthy and ready to go to give them breaks on some drives. And because of that, much like in the AFC, both 6 and 7 seeds, I feel like might lose those spots to teams like the Detroit Lions, who are a game away from being back right up into that kind of conversation. And then I can't do it. I was going to say the Carolina Panthers, but we all know that's not going to bode well. They're 6-5 right now,
yeah.
but I just don't see that team as playoff caliber. But there are other teams that are kind of like on the outside looking in where this is a very big mix. I feel like where if a team starts to gain some momentum, maybe like the Dallas Cowboys. I know the Cowboys defense has been atrocious, of late. They pulled off a couple of big trades. They get Logan Wilson at linebacker. They get Quinnen Williams from the Jets now, and they also have had other guys come back into this defense after the bye week. Now they are completely healthy on the defensive side of the ball. And with that, all those players returning, the defense looks much different and they run it differently now. They're more aggressive, downhill type of a defense. So the Cowboys, again, I have to say, like, even though we've been picking on them all year, from
Mhm.
what I saw, like I watched that Raider game and I was just watching, we all knew that the Cowboys were going to win that game.
Yeah.
But what I was looking for is the defensive players that they've added and the
Yeah.
players returning from injuries, how much better does that defense look as a whole? And I tell you right now, on the football field, just looking at how they run their scheme, they fly sideline to sideline and they are fast and physical. I think this is a team like Dallas might be able to turn the corner and fight their way into maybe the 7th seed as a wild card.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, I mean, it's tough. And again, within, it depends again who I know they've got the Giants again moving forward, and I think they've got the Eagles again, which is that's gonna be a tough matchups here with the Eagles. But if they can still win there, then why not? That's key right there for them to move forward. And you did see the defense, the difference. You know what I mean? On that rush, whether it be not exactly like true pass rushers, but again, even Kenneth Murray stepping up despite having all these other guys you added to kind of replace him too on top of it. So all these new faces that they brought in are all making moves and making a difference here to create that pressure, so now that secondary doesn't have to cover so long and things like that and get burned getting sacks, more turnovers on top of it too, and pressures too. So yeah, that'll be key. And that offense, we knew it is what they is, but let me tell you, it all goes through George Pickens. I mean, that had to been one of the greatest signings for them, or to get him, and they've got a serious thing when it's all said and done after this season, and what kind of deal they're going to give him, and some
I
decisions to be made for all these players that they moved in George Pickens here on top of it.
Yeah, and how are you gonna be able to afford him?
Yeah.
Because, like, that's gonna be the thing. He's not gonna come cheap to stay,
Mhm.
and you've already have invested a lot of money in other players, like CeeDee Lamb, you know what I mean? Like, Deron
Yeah.
Bland, they just paid big money to because they got rid of Micah Parsons.
Yep.
So, Logan Wilson's gonna be looking
Mhm.
for a new deal soon, and they
Yep.
just traded for him.
Yep.
So yeah, they're gonna have their hands full, this offseason trying to keep everybody happy and try to keep that team together, but that's a whole other conversation that we'll have in the offseason when that comes time.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens this season, after all these moves and after the trade of Micah Parsons, if Jerry Jones comes out on top of this whole thing after, it's all said and done, looking like he made the right move, right? And as far as the Panthers, same thing. They're the ultimate Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde when it comes to home away games. If they're playing at home, they can win. I think they won 30-0 before too. Away games, though, they get blown out. The defense will play great. The offense sucks, then turning the ball over. So never playing on all cylinders at all times, right? It's just somebody's doing good and then somebody's doing bad. So the record is what it is, but again, it's going to go back and forth, right? So you can't trust that team. We weren't expecting them to make a playoff run this
No.
year, so I think that's what we're seeing now is maybe this team is potentially making a turn. And kind of growing from it. So you're going to get some of those inconsistencies. But as far as this season and stuff, again, yeah, I don't think they're going to make a strong run. Running game looks good. If they can keep those guys together, Dowdle with, some Chuba Hubbard and stuff like that, I think you've got a good running nucleus there, and get it on point with these wide receivers, and maybe just make a switch at quarterback here too, down the line here.
I will say this about the Panthers is like Bryce Young, whether, he's up, he's down this year, but I gotta say overall as the team goes, they are playing better. Like,
Mhm.
it might not look like it week in and week out, but then there's some of these other games where you're like, "Well, how the hell did they do that?" Like, Tedero McMillan as a rookie went off this past week.
Yeah.
Was insane. Like,
Mhm.
what he had, like 11 targets or something like that, 10 catches, like over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. The guy was a beast, in that game. And Bryce Young, obviously, like, when you start to throw footballs to players like that can bail you out of certain situations and make the most of each play, you probably should keep feeding him the ball a little bit more often. And maybe he might be learning that, as we go. And this team overall, I'll say this, coming into the season, we already knew the defense was pretty good. We just needed that offense to step up. And the fact that they are right now kind of still they're on the bubble, like just barely, like, but they're there. They're in the conversation for playoffs. Like, whether they make it or not. And when it's all said and done, it's a win. It's showing you that this team is getting better because now we're even talking about them just over halfway through the season as the ninth seed and probably maybe making that push to kind of get into the seventh seed.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. So I think one key team we kind of skipped over too is the Lions, right? And the Lions last year going in as the number one seed for the NFC and out, right away with a bad performance. Again, I think weather was part of it too, or something. I don't know, but this year too, losing to tough competition again. You just lost again to a team where you were just getting pressured nonstop. And Jared Goff, we talked about his high completion percentage and how he looks and stuff, just in his face nonstop. Didn't look comfortable at all. And in that game against the Eagles, he recorded a career low of 37.8 completion rate and was just lost, right? They were going after them nonstop. So they're good, but it seems like you get that team that's just a tougher team, and then maybe weather conditions, and it changes everything for this team. And that's
Again,
like for them, they're tough and they're good to watch and fun to watch, but I don't know if they're a grind out team.
I think they're definitely a physical and grind out team. There's no doubt about it. For the Lions, though, what you saw is a breakdown on the offensive line. I feel like the play calls for the O line were a little miscued. They were missing their assignments, and that's why the pressure was so great for Jared Goff. That's something that they need to shore up, going into next week. They need to make an example of whoever they're playing and
They're
really kind
playing
of
the Giants this week, I think. Oh,
really put it to the
woohoo!
Giants. So,
Yeah.
this could be one of those
Uh,
kind of like confidence booster type games for them
yeah.
because they're gonna have to take all their aggression out, and you can't make mistakes up front, and there was just too many of them. You could just see it. I mean, when you look back at that game this is an offensive line that is one of the better offensive lines in football, and for them to have a bad day in pass protection like they did against the Eagles, and a team also as the Eagles defense was struggling up to that point, wasn't playing their best. So it seems like it was kind of like a combination of both, where like the Eagles defense played a little bit better, where the Lions, protection up front played a little worse. And I don't think by any means this team is out of the realm of making the playoffs. I think they are going to be one of those teams where it's all said and done. They carve their way back into the playoff race, and who knows where they're going to end up, but they're only one game out of being in the playoff consideration. So look for them to kind of turn it around this week, get a W, get back that momentum, get back that, winning, get a W in the win column and continue after that. I think they're a team when it's all said and done, they're easily going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and the thing is too this year too, their third down conversion rate, they ranked 21st in the league, third downs, just 37.5%. And that could be too a factor of holding them back. And do you go for it fourth down? Like what they do it 5 times this last week here and just converted on none of them? You know what I
Dan
mean? So,
Campbell,
right? But I know, man. But I mean, Brandon Staley
hey,
knows all about that, bro.
so-
Gonna fire him like, they did with Brian
no,
Staley,
they're not
but
going to fire
Brandon
him.
Staley. But I'm just
I think
saying, man, like,
I
and
I
I know the
honestly
wind
think
was
that
whipping
Dan
though in that
Campbell
game though too. So, I
I
get
honestly
that.
think that Dan Campbell needs to kind of check himself and like, "Hey,
Yeah.
listen, I get it, you're an aggressive coach, but go on fourth down within reason. Don't go
Hmm.
for it on fourth down if you're on your side of the football, or on your side of the
Hmm.
field. Like, if you're at your 35 or 40-yard line, no, don't freaking go for it. I don't care if you think you can get it. Punt the
Right.
ball and then have your defense go out there and stop the team from going down the field. Like, let's be smart
Yeah.
about it. I don't mind teams going for it on fourth down if it's fourth and short and you're on the opponent's 35 or 40 or something like that. But to do it as often as Dan Campbell does, sometimes it is seen reckless and almost a little disrespectful as
Yeah.
well,
Hmm.
because you can't automatically, and I know he has trust in his players and all that, just like they do in him, but there comes a point where don't be the dumb idiot on
Yeah.
the football
You
field.
got to
Don't be
read
the
the room.
Yeah, yeah, don't be the guy that's making the bad decisions all the time, and despite your stigma of going for it on fourth down. It doesn't mean you have to live up to it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Including the fake punt, like everything. Dude, He,
Oh,
he threw out
jeez.
everything there. Like, but that's the thing though, like talking about reading the room. Your offensive line wasn't able to stop them on every single down, just about, you know what I mean? So what's gonna tell you on when it's fourth down that they're gonna all of a sudden hold, you know what I mean? They give you that chance. So read the room. They do have the Giants coming up, then the Packers. They've got some tough ones because again, I think that Cowboys game is gonna be closer. Luckily, they're at home for that one, but then they've got the Rams, Steelers, Vikings, and then Bears to climb it out. So again, those last couple 2 games here, divisional games, they're where they can get some more wins back against some of those teams here. Where the Vikings, again, mathematically, through their percentages saying they're out of it too, and just physically looking at that game too, or that team, they've had injuries. I know JJ McCarthy in and out of the lineup too. And just he's in over his head this year, man. He just doesn't look good. it's a growing year for them. I think they're going to just flat out miss the playoffs. I don't think, I mean, technically they have a 5% shot, they're saying, or whatever, but I think the Vikings are done this year, and then they're going to just move into the next year
One
plans.
thing I wanna touch on with Detroit too is for Dan Campbell to take over the play calling duties at this point in the season. What's your opinion about this, Jim? Because when I watched him call the whole game this past week, and I'm watching the plays he's calling. He didn't do a bad job, not saying that, but I mean, a defensive minded guy calling offensive plays is kind of interesting, for a
Yeah.
guy to and I understand, like, he's got the defensive background. He can look at what the defense is doing out on the football field. I'm like, all right, you know what? They're playing mostly cover two, so I'm gonna call this play, and that's usually gonna fix things. But I don't know how I feel about this. For Jim Bob Cooter, who's been the offensive coordinator, who's been doing a fairly good job, I feel like, and now all of a sudden Dan Campbell's taking over those duties.
I think it takes away from what he does best, right, Joe? I mean, yes, he's a former tight end and things, and he knows his stuff. He's been around the league, but you see, he doesn't give you what he does best on the sidelines, right? What do you usually see him fire it up on the sidelines, watching the game? This and he's getting to the players. Here, instead, he's got his glasses down. He's looking, trying to
Mhm.
find the next thing, and he's even looked like he's searching. He's like, "There's a back of this thing."
Feel
I
a
mean,
little
so
uncomfortable, doesn't he?
does. And it seems like, and they're not doing some of those things because I feel like in that game, when you're getting pressure, stuff like that, that's when you needed some of those other type of gadget plays to get something going, right? That they just didn't pull out. One thing is do a fake punt or whatever, but they didn't do any of those gadget plays really that can kind of jumpstart the offense. At least people make people think, get people out. Jameson Williams out, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown both in the backfield, jet sweeps or whatever, it's crisscrossing or get something. And I didn't see any of that this week either. So I feel like I don't think they really needed him to move forward, to take over the reins to kind of get
Yeah.
this offense going. Like we said, the low third down conversions and stuff like that. Points scored as opposed to last year, significantly lower. But that's teams getting better in the division. That's people learning too from what they've done before, getting more tape on them. That's the difference with having your offensive coordinator go to the Bears and be their head coach. You're going to have a little bit of that, but you work through it. You don't see the Philadelphia Eagles, all of a sudden there's a little tick down in the offense or something, and then all of a sudden, the head coach is going to be like, well, I'm calling plays now, right? They just work through it and get through it. You know what I'm saying? So
There was
um,
something that
I
happened
don't
in that
like it
game.
myself. So
There was something that happened in that game that I noticed where, like, they didn't continually go to, because here's the problem with Dan Campbell as the play caller is I understand he's trying to get Jameson Williams more involved in the offense, but by doing that, he's also taking away from Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is their playmaker, is their
mhm,
guy. And I know Jameson Williams has that potential, but doesn't mean neglect Amon-Ra, and it doesn't mean go away from what works with Jahmyr Gibbs, because
right.
every time Gibbs touched the ball in that game,
Oh yeah,
he was getting yardage. He
big
was
time.
getting first downs. You know what I mean? So I kind of question him
Right.
taking over the play calling duties now after watching a whole game of him
Mhm.
calling the plays in certain situations. And it's like, all right, well, Jahmyr Gibbs is always working, so maybe we
Yeah.
should just keep going to him,
Yeah.
until they make a change. Instead of making calling plays to go to Jameson Williams, maybe we go back to Amon Ra to kind of shake things up. We didn't see those in-game changes or in-game play calls as much as we should have, I feel like. So yeah, I'm
I agree.
also another person that evaluates the game, and I'm not fond of him taking over the play calling. If this team was absolutely atrocious on offense, or even just one of the worst offenses, Ryan, then I could get it. But
Yeah.
the fact that they were pretty good before
Yeah.
and the offensive coordinator was doing well, it's not, you know, I don't think it's
Right.
anything he did.
Right.
So maybe they'll
Yeah.
go back to it. We'll see.
Right. And that's the thing. It's again watching the game. Dude, if they're running the ball effectively, keep it
Mhm.
going, because what does the run game do? Wears out that defense, what the Eagles defense was doing. That
Yeah.
you eliminate pass pressure because you're just, wearing them out. You're running the ball. You're effective. You're moving the chain still and making the time go, the clock, the time of possession How many times I talked about that last week with some of these games, Joe? And actually, they came to fruition too. Those games I talked about where teams had to control the clock, they did, and it worked out for them. You manage the game, and that's when you've got a defense that's punching in the mouth that's coming at you whenever you're trying to give it all out.
Mm.
Simplify it, break it down, slow it down, man. Bring it down and see what's working for you. The running game's working for you. That's what you're going to do. Hey, it's going to be a run game all day. That's what we're doing. Forget the throwing. Running's
Yeah.
working. That's what we're doing today, folks. You know what I
And
mean?
you can even if your running game isn't working, you can have those quick plays to your running back
Right.
out of the backfield like a run, and you utilize it that way. So we'll see if Dan Campbell or the Detroit Lions make this decision about maybe going back to the original offensive coordinator or not. But I think as we get closer to playoffs, I think it's kind of needed. I think they need to go back to Jim Bob Cooter.
All right. Excellent. All right, Joe. That's it. That's the playoff picture so far. We've talked about a bunch of the different teams, a bunch of scenarios and stuff. And the next 5 weeks or so, it's going to get crazy. Again, a lot of tight games, Thanksgiving games coming up too, Joe. We've got this
Yeah.
Thursday first and then, moving right into it. But who knows? Again, it's the wild, wild West that we call the NFL season here, and it's just crazy. It's up and down
It's
every
the
week.
Thunderdome.
It's nuts. It's going to be nutty. So who
For
knows?
sure.
It's any game. Teams. Chance to get in and out. Do we see the Chiefs? Somehow miraculously bring it back in here and make the playoffs? And again, teams. Buffalo Bills going to get things going. I mean, so many different storylines, so many different things. It's
Right.
going to be exciting.
And it's funny, Jim, and it's funny that we're talking about this show because I was taking a look at like the playoff bracket and seeing what teams like right now would be there. I'm like, dude, none of these teams were there like basically last year. So it's like
None.
it's interesting, it's intriguing. Can't wait to see how everything unravels. But let's face it, one thing that we do know about this year, everything's going to change by the end of it.
Absolutely. All right. So that's it for us this week. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, Grumblings Media on YouTube here. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell each and every we go live, and then find all the other different videos on there too. We are changing around the whole look of it all in the library and stuff. So you'll find more of our sports shows there. So check it out. Make sure you guys subscribe, be up to date with everything that we post on there. And we'll see you guys in
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.